Hooty hoo, all my stock market gamblers. Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. So glad you're here. What do we got going on? Well, this week, guess what? We did it again. We had another record high in the stock market. Every week we got to get a record high, right? I mean, that's how you get going to the moon. Record high, record high, record high. What's going to break this market? I don't know. I guarantee you it will break, but not yet, not yet. They're still flooding the liquidity in. You got to watch the HYG. When that starts coming down, then that's the time that the market's going to break. Until that breaks, the market's going to stay strong. Record high, record high, record high. We'll see how it all plays out as we head into, well, September, October should be very interesting. All right, let's talk a little bit about the real estate market today. There's some strange things going on in the real estate market. 1 out of every 6 sellers is now selling at a loss. 1 out of 6 are selling at a loss. Now that's interesting. That means that a lot of people are already underwater and they're not aware of it yet. You see, the news in real estate is delayed, right? The sales that come out, that I make now will come out 2 months from now. It takes 2 months to get the information into the consumer's hands. But right now, 1 out of 6 properties is selling at a loss. Now, condos they're just getting destroyed. 30% of them underwater already. 30% underwater. That means they can't sell it for any profit. And a lot, it might be worse than that because when you think about it, it takes another 5-6% to sell. Now, single family homes aren't that bad. Somewhere between 5 and 10% are getting underwater. Very interesting. Now, if you bought in the last 3 or 4 years, guess what? 80% of you have buyer's remorse. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, everybody tells me I got this all wrong. Everybody tells me houses are going to the moon. Everybody tells me in their area it's impossible for the houses to go down. And maybe it is in your area. Real estate, very local, right? I mean, certain areas do really well. Certain areas are in free fall. Okay, well, what's happened to the luxury, the high end? Where have all the rich people gone? These things are frozen. You got to sell a $5 million house. Not going to sell. Nobody has the money anymore. So the rich people, they want to get out. But who are they selling to? To who? To who? They're the owl houses, right? But who are they selling to? The rich people are the rich people. When they're no longer rich, well, no one to sell to. You see, because the step-up buyer isn't working, right? Normally in the old days, you go from one house, upgrade to the next house, upgrade to the next house, and it just play out over the course of your life. All of a sudden, you end up in a McMansion. Us baby boomers, we own a lot of McMansions, right? But we want to get rid of them now. But who can we sell them to? The rich people are going away. They're not buying the McMansions. The younger people, they want a McMansion. They can't afford it, right? So something's going to give. Now, eventually, the house prices will start to come down. And there's a lot of what I call a shadow housing market out there. A lot of things in the housing market happens in the shadows. Not everything makes it to the MLS. Not everything makes it onto Zillow. That's why Compass and Zillow, they're suing each other, right? Compass doesn't want to put their listings on Zillow anymore. And Zillow says, hey, if you don't put those listings on, we don't want your bad listings. You see, the shadow market's very interesting. All right, well, let me talk a little bit about this. I know a little bit about this. When I want to buy a house, right, back when I was looking to make money flipping houses, well, how would I find them? I would advertise for them. I'd put, cash for your home, all cash offers. Send out little postcards to the houses that are rental properties, the ones that are run down. And those people, a lot of times they were landlords that wanted to get out of the house, or maybe the house was in disrepair because they had no money for the repairs. Very common today that you see rundown houses. People can't afford the maintenance after they pay for the property taxes, after they pay for the insurance costs. And some people, they can't even get insurance. This one guy I sold the house to, right? Well, anyways, his insurance company flew a drone over his house, right? They flew a drone over his house and they told him he's got to replace the roof if he wants to keep his insurance policy. And he called me up, go, Mike, the roof is 20 years old. It's a 40-year roof. How can they force me to replace it? They say if I don't replace the roof, I'll get canceled. I told him to try some other insurance companies. He did. No one would insure him. So he had to go put a new roof on the house. Very fascinating. Cost him 20 grand, right? But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, he had this big tree in the backyard. They made him take the tree out. Not just trim the tree, he had to remove the tree. Another 3 grand to remove the tree. He's out 23 grand just so he could get insurance. Some people can't get insurance, but if they can get it, it's more expensive. Everything's going up. Property taxes going up, right? Insurance going up. Maintenance people can't afford it, so you're starting to see some rundown houses. Back to the shadow housing market, right? So some of these people, you send out postcards. I'm sure you get them all the time. Cash for your house. I'm a cash buyer. I want to buy your home. Well, guess what? When you call that number, what happens? They give you an offer about 20, 30% below the market rate. Let's say the home's worth $1 million. They might offer you $750,000 for it. You say, but it's worth $1 million. And then you say, well, you go sell it. House is in disrepair. Very hard to sell a house that's all run down, that's in disrepair. And even when you do, it's going to cost you 6%, so you're at 60 grand. And some people just don't want to deal with the headache, so they just wash their hands of it, right? And they sell it for 750, even though the market's up here at $1 million. Well, guess what happened to all the neighbors' homes at that point? All the neighbors' homes come down to 750. Now, Dave Ramsey will tell you that's not true because that was a distressed sale. That doesn't bring the other houses down. I would beg to differ with Mr. Ramsey. That is now the most recent comp. That is now setting the new appraisal for the neighborhood. So when you get a buyer comes in and they offer $1 million, they'll tell them the house only appraises at $800,000. So they can't get the loan. So that's why so many of these houses are falling out of escrow. Houses are going into escrow, but they're not closing, right? They fall out of escrow. They can't get the loans. The appraisals aren't coming in. And this is caused by the shadow housing market, the ones that they were forced to sell. They don't show up on the MLS. They don't show up on Zillow, but the appraiser sees them because they're in the county recorder's office. So that $1 million house now has a $750,000 comp. So pray none of your neighbors sell to one of these investors, right? These investors, they come in with all cash. They don't, they have their own lenders. They're private lenders. I used to do these. I had what was known as my money guy, right? I say, hey, Big John, hey, I need to borrow $1 million. He goes, all right, here's a check. And when I made the profit, he'd take 10% of my profits. I was perfectly fine with that. I kept 90%. He got 10% just for writing out a check. But he had the $1 million, so that's what we needed to get the house. And then I did the work and made the sale. And then I gave him 10% of my profits. He was happy. I was happy. Usually took a couple of months. And he did very well on his rates of that. But that was my funder, right? I called him the funder. He'd bring the funds in. Doesn't show up anywhere, right? Doesn't show up in the banks. The banks don't know about it. It's a cash sale, right? And then I go and I try to flip the house. Sometimes I'd make them rentals and hold them for a while, right? And hope the market recovers. But this is a shadow housing market out there. And a lot of people aren't aware that that exists, right? Very few people know about the shadow housing market, but it's going on right now because people are having a tough time selling. So you get all these people sending out their postcards to these rundown homes to make a cash offer on them. And some of the people are taking the cash offer, lowers the appraisals. The other people get a high offer. They can't get it closed. Falls out of escrow, right? And it's funny. It's funny. Now, the baby boomers, you see, a lot of baby boomers, they want to put their house on the market, but they're waiting for Powell to lower the interest rates. Like that's going to make their house sell. Well, they know if they put it up here, Billy Bob's price now, they can't get Billy Bob's price, right? Because Billy Bob sold up at the top. They'd have to come in a little bit lower because the appraisal's not going to appraise up at Billy Bob's price. price. But these, so the boomers, right? So they're kind of waiting for the Powell to lower the inflation rates. Well, the rate of interest, not the inflation rates. He doesn't have the power to lower inflation. Matter of fact, he's the cause of inflation, and you're going to see inflation go like this when he lowers those rates, right? So he's going to lower the rates, right? I mean, Scott Bessent, whatever, the treasurer dude. Anyways, he's coming out. He's saying, hey, you got to lower them 1.5 percentage points in September. Really, 1.5? That'd be like the biggest rate cut I've ever heard of when it's not an emergency. Got the stock market at a record high. Let's throw some gasoline on it. Let's just do what Trump wants and cut them 3%. Get right to it, right? Well, when you cut those 3%, that inflation number is going to be heading up, right? And what's going to happen to the long end of the bond market? It's going to be chasing the inflation upward, chasing it upward. Not going to be coming down like so many people are hoping for, so many realtors are praying for. The mortgage rates are going to be going higher when they're lowering the rate. Very peculiar times. A lot of people don't believe this will happen. You can just look back to last year. Lowered it 1% on the short end. The long end went up about 1%. Now, here's the thing. You got these FHA loans out there, right? 11% of them are already in delinquency. 11% of FHA loans are delinquent already, and we just are starting with the job loss. We're just starting with them, right? So you had these houses like they were inflating, right? When they're inflating, everything's great. When it's $1 million, it inflates up $1.1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million, $1.4 million, $1.5 million. All right, I'm out. I'm selling. I'm taking my profit. That's what Billy Bob did. Took his profits, right? Got out of the game. And now what you're seeing is deflation. That $1.5 million going down $1.4 million, $1.3 million, $1.2 million. He's already underwater. He put $300,000 down, thought he was safe, right? Put $300,000 down when he bought that $1.5 million home. But that $1.5 million home is now down to $1.2 million. He is underwater. He's got to bring closing money just to the closing table of escrow just to unload the property. I mean, he's got to bring another $60,000 to $80,000 into the escrow office if we can get it sold at that $1.2 million. But instead of inflation, you got the houses going deflation now. It's very sad for a lot of people. A lot of people are what's known as the bag holder. They bought up here at the $1.5 million, and now it's down here at $1.2 million, and someone took that cash offer down at $900,000. They're going to be lucky to get out at $1 million. Pretty soon they hand the keys back to the bank. Who's the bank? The FHA loan. The FHA loans are very funny because who gets on the hook for them? Who's next on the line? My neck, your neck, right? Backed by the federal government. Technically, they're not backed, but the federal government and FHA loan, they guarantee the Fannie and the Freddie, and that's a whole another video because those are going public, which is actually one of the biggest scams in the history of the United States when they bring Fannie and Freddie public. But we'll talk about that in another video because I don't have time for all that today. But what you got is the jobs. The jobs, look at Donald was so upset with the job number, just fired the messenger, shot the messenger, right? Don't bring me those bad job numbers. Look at jobs are going away, right? Well, what's that doing? It's putting inventory onto the housing market. Housing inventory up 30% from where it was last year. And this is nationwide. This is every metro. Every metro, the inventory is higher this year than it was last year. Why? Because nothing's selling. Real estate market's frozen up. But here's what the thing is. When you get that shadow housing numbers coming out where the person takes that cash offer down 30, 40, 50% below market, those are the new comps. New comps are what appraisers have to use so that the appraiser doesn't get sued, right? Because those are what he's working with. So when someone in your neighborhood takes that cash offer from the investor, brings the whole neighborhood prices down. Isn't that shocking? I know not your neighborhood. No one in your neighborhood would ever take a cash offer, right? They don't ever sell in your neighborhood. That's cool, right? You don't want them to sell, especially for 30% below what you think your house is worth because all of a sudden your house comes tumbling down. But we got 11% delinquency rate, and we're just starting to get the job losses. This is a big problem. A lot of people think it's not a big problem. Dave Ramsey thinks it's just fine, perfectly normal, Tall Mike, to have 11% delinquency rate on mortgages. I don't think that's normal. I mean, in the subprime mess, you go back to there, how many went into foreclosure? Not even 2%. We're 11% right now are delinquent. And in the subprime crisis that took housing down 34%, only 2% of homes went into foreclosure. We got 11% out there that we can start foreclosing on tomorrow. As a matter of fact, that's coming up, right? September is when we can start foreclosing on those FHA homes. See, Biden on his last day in office signed that we can't foreclose on them yet, but that's coming due this September. You're going to see those foreclosures being dumped onto the marketplace. 11% FHA loans delinquent. There's going to be some inventory coming out. This shadow housing market is very, very problematic. Lowering the comps, lowering the comps, lowering the comps. People can't get their home appraised, falling out of escrow, falling out of escrow. Scary times in the housing market. People think I just come on here and blow hot wind to scare you. Look I'm a real estate broker. I want them to double from here. That way my income will double along with it. You get out there, enjoy the day, but give me that thumbs up first. Punch that subscribe button. We'll talk again real soon. Bye-bye now.